Hello, this is Sheshachalam from Astro Guide Mysore. Today I am talking a very general topic which is important. To understand, planets get exalted in certain places of the zodiac only. Let us not go into the astronomical understanding first. Let us understand the relevance as to why each planet gets exalted there. Is the astronomical relevance, which I am not touching now. But what happens when it gets exalted there from the perspective of the Kala Purusha Lagna. So what is Kala Purusha Lagna? That is from 0 degree Aries. So if people tell that should we keep 0 degree Aries as Lagna or 15 degrees Aries as Lagna, that is a huge topic to discuss. We will not go into that now. So let us take Aries as the first house. We can also take 10 degrees of Aries as the first house. There is another way of thinking. Why? Because Sun gets exalted at that particular point. 10 degrees of Aries is Ashwini Nakshatra, third Pada completed. That is 0 to 3 degrees 20 minutes. 320 to 640, 640 to 10, 10 to 1320, that is Ashwini Nakshatra. So 10 degrees is somewhere in between the third and the fourth. It's exactly the finishing point of the third Pada of Ashwini Nakshatra. So if I take it as the first house midpoint, just for instance, then what is Sun doing there? Sun is the Purva Punya Sthanadipati. What is Purva Punya Sthanadipati? That is the Lord of the 5th house, which actually denotes your Janma, that is this birth, and why this birth has happened and because of what karma did this birth happen. That is the Purva Punya Sthana. So this Adipati of the 5th house gets placed in the Lagna. And what is the 5th house? It is the way we think. See, each house of the zodiac or the Rashi Kundali can be defined in very different ways, beautiful ways of defining them. If you keep imagining and doing your research, you will understand. Like for example, the first house is you, your identity, yourself, your realized self, your conscious self, your body, your senses. All this comes under the first house. The second house, as we said, it is family, wealth, food, many other things like primary education. But this is one way of thinking. So there are many other ways of thinking. Like the 4th house is the place where we sit, the place where we reside, our residence, the house. So let us come to the other way of thinking, the place where we sit. Where do we sit? Usually we sit to work nowadays, because earlier days people would not sit and work, they would be active in their work. Now it's a very different scenario. Earlier days, people would sit to listen. People would sit to learn. People would sit to understand a concept. People would sit to meditate. That is why the 4th house is an extremely important house where you should become inactive physically and active mentally. The reverse of it is the 10th house, where you have to become active physically and inactive mentally. This is what has been described in the Bhagavad Gita as action in inaction and inaction in action. Beautifully described by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So, what do we do when we sit? We absorb. We absorb our learnings. We take in the grasping power. If there is a strong planet of wisdom like Jupiter, That is why it gets exalted in Karkataka Rashi, which is the 4th house from the ascendant. To have a strong self, a strong body, Tanu and Mana, that is the body and the mind, to have a strong way of thinking, as it is said in the Atharvana Shirsha, Ganesha Atharvana Shirsha, which I keep repeating in many of my talks. Bhadram karne vishunayama devaha, Bhadram pashyemakshabir ejatra, Stirair angai suštuvagum sastanove, Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu. So, sun gives all these strong faculties of good mind, good perception, good thoughts, straightforwardness, frankness, boldness, strength in the body, vigor, blood. What else you want? Health, good health. So sun gets the strongest position in the first house, and that is why it is exalted in the first house in the Kala Purusha Lagna, that is Mesha. The second house is the house of expression. If you want to show love, you don't close your eyes, you don't put a paint or a mask on your face, you don't hide your face to express. You open and express. Your expression, when I tell expression, it is not gesture, it is not the hand movement. That is also expression, but when I tell express, it is directly related to your eyes, your nose, your ears, your face, your smile. All those muscles which contract and expand on your face and give an expression. That is a reaction. Pain, suddenly the whole thing comes close by and you can't, you will close your eyes, you will come to the center point because you want to go there and to stop the pain. When you are happy, it expands. You don't do like this when you are happy, you expand. So why does it happen then? Why do you smile? A smile is always a wide smile. So these expressions are controlled by emotions, and this emotion is in the brain, and that's controlled by the mind, because how you process your emotion is the way you think, what is your memory for a particular perception. So it's like you have a cognitive perception, and it's like when I'm in a very crude manner. Even my farmhouse, for example, my one of my cows cut loose and it went away because it just got the nose thread or something like that. I don't put nose threads to my cow, but anyway, it got the neck thing loose and it just left and it just started running away. It was not coming to me. An easy way to attract a cow is to show it a bucket. It knows that there is going to be some food in that. It directly comes to me. So the attraction. This happens from the second house. I am telling you the crudest level. The same thing happens to a human being also. Human being is nothing but an animal. Only thing is that he feels that he is civilized, but from my perspective, he is the most insane, idiotic person on earth who has spoiled this nature to such an extent that he himself is now cribbing and crying that for our own human future we will not have a beautiful earth anymore, because we have used all the surplus. And I will not go into that subject, it's a very big subject anyway once again. So the things which we get attracted to, the reaction, it's on depending on, you see a good beautiful pastry in front of you nowadays, or you see the desi jamun, ghee jamun in front of you, you will salivate. It's animalistic. People tell that, no, I have the best control over my body. How much ever you have the control, unless you go par excellence of a particular sannyasa, you will salivate, you will want to eat it, though you can't eat it or you will not eat it, that's a different perspective, but the want will suddenly come from the gut, it goes to the brain will tell the emotion, earlier I had eaten this jamun, it was tasting so good, so you will salivate. Even talking, I am salivating. So that's, I am human being, man. So the point is to salivate, to eat, to enjoy life, to express. second house, and that is why moon is in the second house. We always call it Tanu, Mana, Dhana. Tanu means body, Mana means mind, Dhana means wealth. All these three are at the center point of the Lagna, 15 degrees from the Lagna, 30th degrees from the Lagna, and onwards. So it is like that, Tanu, Mana, Dhana. So the mind or the expression is in between the first house and the second house, and that is why moon gets exalted at 3 degrees in the nakshatra of Kritika. So Kritika nakshatra is represented by sun. Chandrama mukamasit chakshus suryo ajayatha. Chandrama mukam asit. So in the Purusha Sukta, it has told that Chandra controls the face, but the Tikshnate, that is the Tejas, the intensity of the eye, the forcefulness is controlled by sun. The Prakasha, what we call as light, is controlled by sun. So that is why moon is in the second house. And also you can see that mother, the fourth lord, comes and sits in the second house. Such a beautiful concept to understand why, how actually these planets relate to our life starting from the Kalapurusha anyway. Now let us go to the more diversified planets like Mercury, which gets exalted in the 6th Rashi from the Kalapurusha Lagna, that is from Mesha. It gets exalted in Kanya at 15 degrees. It's from 0 degrees to 15 degrees, but the peak exaltation is at 15 degrees. From 15 to 20 it is Mula Trikona, from 20 to 30 it is the own house. So that is the status which changes when Mercury keeps drifting in that particular Rashi. So 6th house is the 4th from the 3rd house. 3rd house is also Mercury, the house of communication. The house of communication will get satisfaction if Mercury gets exalted in the 6th house. And why? Because it is the Sukha. If you talk and people don't listen to you, how will you feel? If you talk and there is no reciprocation, how will you feel? So, if your communication goes to a wall, you don't feel good. Even if you communicate with a bird and it doesn't communicate back to you, you feel that you are, you are not in the nature anymore. Nature has rejected you. They are not communicating with you. This one particular thing is very important in HR, human resource management. Communication is one of the biggest subjects. If a person does not know how to communicate, he is no longer a team member. So if you are a team member, then your team works well. You know how to harness your team together, and you know how to build that peak, the pyramid, achieving the best. 6th house means to achieve, to compete, to run the race and win it, to know how to do it. So it is with non-violence. Why? Mercury does not like violence. He uses his brain. Why should he use his hands and legs and kick somebody? He uses his brains. So in the house of the enemy, when Mercury is placed and exalted, you win over your enemies. Enemies will start helping you. They will become your dasa. Dasa means a surrendered person who has all the strength in the world will work for you. So you will know how to, tie knots and hold them with your, these strings and pull whenever you want it. That particular brain is for a minister of a Maharaja, and that is why it is in the 2nd from Leo. It's a beautiful combination of Mercury in Kanya Rashi, which gets super exalted. That's also for research and high learning, very high learning. Saturn, which gets exalted in the 7th house or the 7th Rashi in Libra, is at 20 degrees. So it is not exactly in the 7th from Sun, it is 10 degrees a little bit away from Sun. It is not loggerheads with Sun. So it is somewhere in between the 7th and the 8th house from Sun. If I take 0 degree Aries, purely Saturn falls in the 8th house. If I take 10 degree Sun, then also Saturn has half of 7th and half of 8th to deal with. Ayusthana. Saturn gets exalted at 20 degrees and it controls the Ayu, the longevity, because it is in the 8th from the 0 degree Aries. Minded, don't underestimate the degree calculations. People simply seeing houses, houses and houses, you will fail your predictions. So, and also it is the 10th Lord in the 7th house, the house of external transaction, that is Vyavahara. Vyavahara means to sell something or to buy something. Selling and buying is what is happening in this world every day. You sell your skill and they have bought you for a particular price called salary. How many people work? Everybody works. And for what? To get something in return. So everything what you do, shram, that is all hard work, all work where you toil in the soil, you are doing it to get something, to get a produce, to get some profit. To do that, you have to do your karma. So the prarabdha karma. So that prarabdha karma, the 10th Lord sitting in the 7th house, very clearly shows that you are performing your deeds as per your karma. Also, the 7th house, where it actually represents Saturn, the slowest of the planets, which is also called as the Manda or Shani. Shani means slow in Sanskrit. Shanais Chara, Shani plus Chara. Shanais Chara means slow moving. So, a slow moving planet with lot of experience. Here the wisdom does not come. Here experience is costlier than wisdom. Wisdom can be learned from a guru. Experience cannot be learned from anything. You have to learn it yourself. You have to walk every path, every stone, every thorn, every wind, every rain, every sunshine which hits you will give you experience. I am just talking about the Panchbhutas, but so many other things. Every boss who scolds you, every wife who scorns you, every husband who ditches you is experience. So, when Saturn is well placed in the 7th house, exalted, that means you have a stable married life. A married life which is having an understanding between two people. So let me go ahead. I have 2 more planets and even Rahu and Ketu. It is a lengthy video, but I will tell you, this video will help you. Mars, the Lagnadipati, because we are talking about Aries as the Kalapurusha Lagna, goes to the 10th house. And where does it get exalted? It gets exalted in its own nakshatra, Dhanishta nakshatra. Beautiful nakshatra, one of the best nakshatras of the zodiac. It is just after the Shravana nakshatra, Shravana, Dhanishta, Shatabisha. It's between Moon and Rahu. Mars gets exalted in Makara Rashi at 28 degrees. And Makara is the 10th house. And once again, even from 10 degrees Sun, it falls in the 11th. If I go from the degree point of view. So the Mars is not totally controlling the 10th house, it is controlling the 11th house. So the 11th house gives a lot of profit-oriented, business-oriented strategy. So it does not keep the man inactive. So if you have a strong, slow-moving planet in the 11th house, we call that as a sannyasa yoga. Jupiter, Saturn, these fellows sitting in the 11th house makes the person go more into inactivity, physical inactivity and mental activity. But here it is Mars, physical activity, less mental activity. So, Mars in the 11th house or the 10th house, if I take the 10th Rashi into consideration, it's a fantastic position to say that a person will get up in his life, he'll rise up in his life due to his own actions and deeds. It doesn't happen just free. You don't get it like free. It's not because of your great-grandfather's rental income, because of his lands and all those things that you sit and eat. That happens when benefics are posited in the 11th house and malefics are posited in the 11th house. You keep getting. But Mars alone in the 11th house will make you work, work and work. It will not give you sannyasa. You will serve, serve and serve. Because it is the opposite for the 3rd house. Through the Jaimini Sutras, I will not go there once again. So, let us go to the planet Venus. It's a very beautiful planet to explain. The 7th Lord Venus, which is the 2nd and the 7th Lord, the wealth and the passion to transact with external world, the business world, is in the 12th house of relishment, enjoyment, lust, so many other things. So savoring. So we also call it as indulgence into material instincts. So if you have some matter, you get indulged with it. Like a car, you want to drive it. A bike, you want to ride it. A land, you want to experience it. You have so many people around you, you want to enjoy. You want to have the group, you want to do the party. So many things, even all the 5 senses are included there. So the indulgence is because of sukha, bodily comfort, through materialistic happiness, which is Venus, which gets exalted in Revati Nakshatra, that is very close to the Lagna. And here, if I take 0 degree Aries, Venus is inside the ascendant. It is not the 12th house anymore. That means the basic instinct of a human being is to relish this nature. The problem is that when he becomes greedy, he plucks more fruits than he can eat. He harnesses more money than he can use. He wastes resources because he is greedy. He is jealous. But Venus, a pure planet, will never be jealous, will never be greedy. It will never overstep its requirement. It will never cross its limit. It's a beautiful planet to be exalted in the 12th house or in the ascendant itself. So these are the major points of what actually happens when these 7 planets get exalted. I'm not talking about debilitation today. I'll talk about debilitation in coming weeks. Let us talk about Rahu and Ketu. The strongest position of Rahu always is said to be the 6th house. Now, if Rahu is going to get, the strength in the 6th house and Ketu gets the strength in the 12th house, because Ketu means the realized self, the renunciation, spirituality, going away voluntarily from materialistic affiliations, that's a good Ketu. If a benefic planet gets associated with Ketu there, then the person is dissatisfied. He loses things. He has over anticipation, desire, but he loses to, achieve those desires. So the discontentment and dissatisfaction is there. So Ketu alone in the 12th house, a beautiful combination. Rahu alone in the 6th house, excellent combination, because the person is wild, he is carefree, he is not having fear. People who don't have fear are the people who have the strength to go and do the investments, make the factories happening. They know what to do. But people who are dissatisfied with the Ketu, the same way if some other planet is associated with Rahu in the 6th house, these people resort to violence and force to achieve things. So it's like I vanquish my enemies so that none of them, even the child will not survive to avenge its revenge. So this is what happened in many history. If you go back to history, many years ago, the raids would happen so that even the king and family, the kith and kin, everybody would be cleaned off, only because they did not want a single trace of the blood to even survive. Why? Because they were afraid that in the future this person can come and avenge. So this is Rahu, the Rahu way of life. But the real exaltation position, which actually has been debated, and it is a debatable point, happens in the Mrigashira Nakshatra, where Rahu gets exalted, and in between the Jyeshta Nakshatra 3rd and 4th Pada, Mula Nakshatra 1st and 2nd Pada for Ketu. And once again, this particular position is known as the 9th house, between the 8th and the 9th house for the Kala Purusha, where Ketu gets exalted. That once again is for realization, beautiful realization and renunciation. And Rahu in the 2nd house is for a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, for realization that the whole creation is mine and I am one of that, and let me keep this creation running so that I will live amongst everyone. So all of us live together. This particular concept is only available when Rahu gets exalted in the 2nd and 3rd house in between, that is in the Mrigashira Nakshatra, where the person is loud, pronounced, he is, he voices out, because it's also a house of communication. So Rahu in that particular position, in that nakshatra, gives excellent results. But anyway, we need to see the degree from the Lagna. So this is what, this is how I have described, more in a descriptive way. I will end this with telling one particular point, that the Lagna and the 7th house, which are usually opposites, Sun in the Lagna, Saturn in the 7th house, they are opposites. These are the only two planets which are opposites. Jupiter, Mars, they are friends. Venus and Mercury, they are friends. Moon, he does not have any competitor. He is exalted somewhere. But Sun and Saturn, they get exalted at opposites. So, will they be, in cooperation? Then what is that? Sun means tradition and custom, what we follow in our life, what our predecessors have given us, and Saturn is the practice, the anusthana, to keep it solid so that the next generation will get it. So that is what is the relation between the Sun and the Saturn, which are there in the 1st and the 7th from each other. Thank you very much for today's class.